Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands as he approached the massive derelict ship, floating in the asteroid field. The ancient vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers long, its hull scarred by countless impacts and the ravages of time. His salvage crew had detected faint energy readings from within, suggesting valuable technology might still be intact. "Another ghost ship," muttered Sarah, his second in command, as their small craft docked with the alien vessel. "These things give me the creeps." Marcus had been salvaging derelict ships for 15 years, ever since humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel and encountered the remnants of dead civilizations scattered across the galaxy. This particular ship belonged to the Zephyrians, a race that had vanished mysteriously 3,000 years ago. Their technology was highly sought after by collectors and researchers alike. The airlock hissed open, revealing corridors that towered 30 feet high. Everything was built for beings much larger than humans. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, which were covered in intricate geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Marcus led his team deeper into the ship, following the energy signatures on his scanner. The readings grew stronger as they approached what appeared to be a medical bay. The doors, massive slabs of crystalline material, had remained sealed for millennia until Marcus's cutting torch broke through. Inside, the medical bay was a marvel of alien engineering. Floating platforms served as examination tables, while strange instruments hung from the ceiling like mechanical spiders. But what caught Marcus's attention was the small form lying on one of the platforms near the back of the room. It was clearly a Zephyrian, but much smaller than the adults they had found in other derelict ships. This one was barely 3 feet long, with the characteristic 6 limbs and crystalline carapace that marked the species. But unlike the fossilized remains they usually encountered, this one's carapace still held a faint blue glow. "Is it alive?" Sarah whispered, raising her plasma rifle. Marcus approached slowly, his scanner beeping frantically. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. The creature's vital signs were present but extremely weak, as if it had been in some form of suspended animation. Its lower body appeared to be completely paralyzed, with several of its limbs twisted at unnatural angles. As Marcus drew closer, the creature's large, multifaceted eyes suddenly opened. They were the color of deep ocean water, filled with an intelligence that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. The young Zephyrian tried to move but could only lift its head slightly before collapsing back onto the platform. The stasis field is failing, Marcus realized, watching the energy readings fluctuate wildly. It's been keeping this little one alive for thousands of years, but the power source is almost depleted. The creature made a sound, a melodic chirping that seemed to convey both fear and hope. Marcus found himself stepping closer despite Sarah's protests. There was something about the way those ancient eyes looked at him, as if the young alien recognized something in the human that others of its kind had not. Marcus had always been the type of person who couldn't walk past an injured animal without helping. It had gotten him into trouble more times than he could count, but it was simply who he was. Looking at this paralyzed alien child, abandoned and left to die in the cold depths of space, he felt that same protective instinct surge within him. "We can't just leave it here," Marcus said, already calculating how they might transport the creature safely. "Are you insane?" Sarah stepped forward. "We don't know anything about its biology, its needs, or even if it's dangerous. That thing could be carrying diseases that could wipe out humanity." But Marcus was already examining the medical equipment surrounding the platform. The Zephyrians had been known for their advanced biotechnology, and many of the devices seemed designed to support life functions. If he could figure out how to power them with human technology, he might be able to keep the creature stable during transport. The young Zephyrian watched Marcus work, its eyes tracking his every movement. When their gazes met, Marcus could swear he saw gratitude there, along with something else. Intelligence. This wasn't just some animal. It was a sentient being, possibly the last of its kind. As Marcus began disconnecting the alien medical equipment, he made a decision that would change not only his life, but the entire course of human history. He was going to save this creature no matter what it took. He had no idea that the paralyzed alien hatchling he was rescuing would one day become humanity's greatest ally in a war they didn't even know was coming. The young Zephyrian's name, as Marcus would later learn, was Cathara, which meant hope-bearer in the ancient tongue. And though neither Marcus nor Cathara knew it yet, that name would prove to be prophetic in ways they could never imagine. The journey back to Marcus's workshop station took 3 days, during which he barely slept. He had rigged a makeshift life support system using salvaged Zephyrian technology connected to human power cells, but he wasn't sure how long it would hold. The young alien, whom he had started calling Little One for lack of knowing its real name, drifted in and out of consciousness. During the creature's waking moments, Marcus tried to communicate. He would point to objects and say their names, hoping to establish some basic vocabulary. To his amazement, the alien seemed to understand the concept immediately and began making different sounds for different items. Its learning capacity was extraordinary. When they finally reached Salvage Station Echo, Marcus's home base in the Outer Rim territories, he faced his first major challenge. The station's medical bay was designed for humans, and Dr. Elena Vasquez was not pleased when Marcus arrived with his unusual patient. "You brought an unknown alien organism onto my station without quarantine protocols?" Dr. Vasquez's voice could have cut through the station's hull plating. "Marcus, even for you, this is beyond reckless." But when she saw the creature's condition, her medical instincts overrode her anger. The young Zephyrian was clearly suffering. Its breathing labored and its crystalline carapace losing more of its blue luminescence with each passing hour. "Its entire lower nervous system has been severed," Dr. Vasquez observed through the isolation barrier. "The spinal cord, if that's what this structure is, shows signs of massive trauma. It's a miracle this creature survived at all." Marcus had been doing research during the journey, accessing every database entry about Zephyrian biology that humanity had collected. The species was known to be incredibly resilient, with the ability to survive in vacuum for short periods and to regenerate lost limbs over time. But spinal injuries appeared to be permanent for them, just as they often were for humans. The creature had been trying to communicate more frequently, and Marcus began to recognize patterns in its vocalizations. When it was in pain, the sounds were lower and more guttural. When it was curious about something, the tones became higher and more musical. It was clearly an intelligent being, trapped in a broken body. On the 4th day, Marcus made a breakthrough. He had been showing the creature pictures of various alien species on his tablet, when it became extremely agitated upon seeing images of the hegemony forces. The hegemony was a militaristic alliance of several alien species that controlled much of the galaxy's core regions. They were known to be hostile to independent worlds and smaller species. The young Zephyrian began making urgent chirping sounds and trying to move its functioning upper limbs in what appeared to be specific gestures. Marcus realized it was trying to warn him about something. "Doctor, I think it's trying to tell us something important," Marcus called to Dr. Vasquez, who had been monitoring the creature's vital signs remotely. That's when the first pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Marcus had found ancient star charts in the derelict ship's navigation system, and when he showed them to the creature, it became extremely distressed. The chart showed hegemony expansion routes that led directly toward human space. The young alien began drawing symbols in the air with its functioning limbs, and Marcus quickly provided it with a digital pad to draw on. What emerged was a crude but unmistakable tactical map showing hegemony fleet movements and what appeared to be planned invasion routes. "This can't be right," Dr. Vasquez said, studying the drawings. "According to this, the hegemony is planning to attack human colonies within the next few months." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. If this information was accurate, humanity was completely unprepared for what was coming. Their military forces were scattered across dozens of systems, focused more on exploration and colonization than warfare. The creature continued drawing, showing what appeared to be massive fleet formations and weapon systems far beyond anything humanity currently possessed. But then it drew something else. Technical schematics that looked like advanced defensive systems and weapons technology. "It's trying to help us," Marcus realized. "It knows something about hegemony technology, and it wants to share that knowledge." Over the following days, Marcus worked tirelessly to improve communication with the young Zephyrian. He rigged up a translation matrix using the ship's linguistic databases and the creature's growing vocabulary. Slowly, they began to have actual conversations. The alien's name was Cathara, which meant hope-bearer in ancient Zephyrian. Cathara had been placed in stasis not because of the injuries, but because of the knowledge stored in its memory engrams. The Zephyrians had discovered the hegemony's expansion plans, centuries ago and had hidden crucial intelligence, data in the minds of their young before their civilization fell. My people saw the darkness coming. Kethara managed to communicate through the translation system. They saved what they could in the hope that someday, someone would find us who could use this knowledge to stop the hegemony. Marcus looked at the paralyzed alien child who had waited 3,000 years in stasis, carrying the hopes of a dead civilization and possibly the key to humanity's survival. He made another decision that would change everything. He was going to make sure Kethara not only survived but thrived, and together they would find a way to save both their species. 6 weeks after rescuing Kethara, Marcus had transformed his workshop into something resembling an alien rehabilitation center. Using his engineering skills and salvaged Zephyrian technology, he built mobility aids that allowed Kethara to move around the station with increasing independence. The bond between human and alien had grown stronger each day. Kethara proved to be incredibly intelligent, not only learning human languages at an astounding rate, but also demonstrating an intuitive understanding of human engineering principles. In return, Kethara shared knowledge of Zephyrian biotechnology that was centuries ahead of human science. Your species builds things to last forever, Kethara observed through the translation device, watching Marcus repair a damaged plasma conduit. But you also build them to be easily fixed when they break. This is wisdom my people never learned. Dr. Vasquez had become fascinated with Kethara's unique biology. The young Zephyrian's crystalline carapace wasn't just protective armor. It was a living computational matrix that could store and process vast amounts of information. The paralysis had occurred because part of this biological computer had been damaged, not just the spinal cord. If we could find a way to repair the damaged crystal matrices, Dr. Vasquez explained to Marcus, we might be able to restore some motor function, but it would require technology we don't currently possess. That's when Kethara made an incredible revelation. Hidden within the medical bay of the derelict ship were not just life support systems, but also regeneration chambers, designed specifically for repairing severe neurological damage in Zephyrians. The problem was that the chambers required a specific type of energy crystal that had been depleted over the millennia. There are still deposits of these crystals in the asteroid fields near my homeworld, Kethara explained, but the journey is dangerous and the hegemony has placed monitoring stations throughout that sector. Marcus didn't hesitate. Then we'll have to find another way. What happened next surprised everyone, including Kethara. Marcus began working on a hybrid solution, combining human technology with Zephyrian biotechnology in ways that neither species had ever attempted. He created neural interface devices that could bypass the damaged sections of Kethara's nervous system, using human-made synthetic crystals to replace the depleted biological ones. The process took weeks of careful experimentation. Marcus worked 18-hour days, often falling asleep at his workbench only to wake up and find that Kethara had continued his work, using the limited mobility aids to manipulate tools and components with surprising dexterity. You do not have to do this, Kethara said one evening as Marcus struggled with a particularly complex neural pathway mapping. I have accepted my condition. The knowledge I carry is more important than my ability to walk. Marcus looked up from his work, his eyes meeting those deep ocean blue multifaceted orbs. Where I come from, we don't leave friends behind, and we certainly don't let them suffer when we can help. The concept of friendship seemed to deeply move Kethara. In Zephyrian culture, relationships were primarily based on genetic lineage and social hierarchy. The idea that two completely different species could form bonds based on mutual respect and caring was revolutionary. As Marcus continued his work, Kethara began sharing more than just technical knowledge. The young alien spoke of Zephyrian philosophy, art, and culture. Marcus learned that Zephyrians valued harmony and balance above all else, which made the hegemony's aggressive expansion particularly abhorrent to them. My people believed that the universe was like a great symphony, Kethara explained. Each species, each world, each life form contributed its own unique note to the cosmic music. The hegemony seeks to silence all voices but their own, creating a universe of monotone silence. The breakthrough came during the 7th week. Marcus had been experimenting with quantum resonance patterns when he discovered that human neural activity could actually harmonize with Zephyrian biocrystals. The two nervous systems, while completely different in structure, operated on similar quantum frequencies. "This is impossible," Dr. Vasquez said, studying the readings. "You're essentially creating a hybrid nervous system that bridges two completely different biological architectures." But it worked. When Marcus activated the neural interface, Kithara's lower limbs responded for the first time in millennia. The movement was slight, just a twitch of what humans might call toes, but for Kithara, it was like witnessing a miracle. Tears, an emotion that Zephyrians expressed through changes in their carapace coloration, flowed across Kithara's crystalline surface. For the first time since awakening, hope was more than just a memory from the past. "You have given me back not just mobility but dignity," Kithara said, the translation device struggling to convey the depth of emotion in the alien's voice. "But more than that, you have shown me that friendship can exist between species that have never even met before." As Marcus watched Kithara take those first tentative steps on newly functioning limbs, he realized that their partnership had become something neither of them had expected. They weren't just alien and human working together. They had become family, and families protected each other no matter what the cost. Little did either of them know that their bond would soon be tested in ways they could never imagine, as the first hegemony scout ships had already begun their approach toward human space. 3 months after Kithara had taken those first miraculous steps, the warnings became reality. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through hyperspace toward human territory. The hegemony fleet was exactly where Kithara had predicted it would be, following invasion routes that had been planned for centuries. Marcus immediately contacted the United Human Defense Council, but his warnings fell on skeptical ears. Admiral Sarah Kingston, the Council's military commander, listened to his report with barely concealed impatience. "Mr. Chen, you're asking us to mobilize our entire fleet, based on information from an alien child you found in a derelict ship," Admiral Kingston said through the communication link. "Do you understand how that sounds?" "Admiral, with respect, Kithara has been accurate about everything so far," Marcus replied. "The star charts, the fleet movements, the technology assessments, everything has been exactly as predicted," but the Admiral was unmoved. "Even if this information is accurate, we can't simply abandon our defensive positions based on speculation. Our forces are spread across 47 systems. It would take weeks to consolidate them, and we have no guarantee that this isn't some elaborate deception." Marcus ended the communication feeling frustrated and helpless. Humanity was about to face an enemy they weren't prepared for, and the people who could save them refused to. Listen, that's when Kithara made an incredible offer. "The knowledge stored in my memory engrams includes complete technical specifications for Zephyrian defensive systems," Kithara said, their newly mobile form pacing around Marcus's workshop. "Weapons, shields, and tactical algorithms that successfully held off hegemony forces for over 2 centuries before my people's final defeat." "But you said the Zephyrians eventually lost," Marcus pointed out. "Yes, but not because our technology was inferior. We lost because we refused to adapt our tactics. We valued honor and traditional combat methods over effectiveness. Humans do not have these limitations." Kithara was right. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability, guerrilla tactics, and the willingness to use any advantage available. If they could combine human tactical flexibility with advanced Zephyrian technology, they might actually have a chance. Working together, Marcus and Kithara began developing prototype weapons and defensive systems that could be manufactured using human industrial capabilities. The process was incredibly complex, requiring Marcus to completely reimagine human engineering principles to accommodate Zephyrian biotechnology. The first breakthrough was in shield technology. Zephyrian defensive systems didn't rely on energy barriers like human shields. Instead, they used crystalline matrices that could absorb and redirect incoming energy. Marcus found a way to synthesize these crystals using human manufacturing techniques, creating shields that were orders of magnitude more effective than anything humanity had previously developed. The second breakthrough was in weapon systems. Zephyrian weapons used harmonic resonance to disrupt the molecular structure of targets. By combining this principle with human particle beam technology, Marcus created weapons that could penetrate any known armor. But they needed to test these technologies, and more importantly, they needed to convince someone in authority to take them seriously. That someone turned out to be Captain Lisa Rodriguez, commander of the patrol frigate UHS Intrepid. She had been monitoring hegemony communications and had detected encrypted transmissions that matched the patterns Kithara had warned about. Your alien friend's information has been spot on about everything I can verify, Captain Rodriguez told Marcus. During a secret meeting at Salvage Station Echo, I've been tracking unusual hegemony fleet movements for weeks, and they match exactly what you've described. Captain Rodriguez agreed to field test Marcus and Kithara's prototype technologies. The results were beyond anything they had hoped for. The new shields absorbed direct hits from military-grade plasma cannons without even flickering. The resonance weapons cut through standard armor plating like it was paper. This technology could change everything, Captain Rodriguez said, her voice filled with awe. But we need more than prototypes. We need production capabilities and trained personnel. That's when Marcus proposed something that had never been attempted in human history. A crash program to retrofit the entire human fleet with hybrid human-Zephyrian technology. It would require the cooperation of every major corporation, research institution, and military facility in human space. You're talking about completely rebuilding our military in a matter of weeks, Captain Rodriguez said. It's impossible. No, Kithara interjected, speaking through the translation device. It is not impossible. It is just very, very difficult. But humans excel at accomplishing the impossible when they are properly motivated. Kithara was right about human nature. When Captain Rodriguez presented the evidence to Admiral Kingston, along with demonstration footage of the new technologies in action, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, the United Human Defense Council had authorized emergency protocols that mobilized every available resource toward the retrofit project. Manufacturing. Plants that had been producing civilian goods were converted to military production overnight. Research stations throughout human space began working around the clock to replicate Marcus and Kithara's designs. Even civilian salvage crews like Marcus's were drafted into service, tasked with gathering rare materials needed for the new technologies. But as the massive mobilization effort began, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. The hegemony fleet wasn't just large. It was enormous. Nearly 3,000 ships of various classes, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been penetrated by any known technology. Humanity had perhaps 6 weeks before the invasion began, and they were about to face an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. But they had one advantage the hegemony didn't expect: the tactical genius of a species that had never learned the meaning of surrender, guided by the ancient wisdom of a civilization that had once stood against the darkness and nearly won. Marcus looked at Kithara, who was now moving freely through the workshop on fully functional limbs, coordinating retrofit operations with human engineers who had learned to respect the young alien's insights. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked. Kithara's carapace shifted to a deep blue color that Marcus had learned indicated determination. "I have been ready for 3,000 years. The question is, are your people ready to show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of?" The retrofit program exceeded every expectation and defied every prediction about what was humanly possible. In just 5 weeks, humanity transformed from a scattered collection of exploration fleets into a unified military force, equipped with technology that bridged the gap between two civilizations separated by millennia. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, serving as the primary liaison between human engineers and Kithara's vast repository of knowledge. They worked from a massive space station that had been hastily converted into a research and manufacturing hub, with thousands of workers operating in shifts around the clock. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Human engineers who had been skeptical of alien technology just weeks before now collaborated seamlessly with Kithara's guidance. The young Zephyrian had become something of a legend among the technical staff, not just for their knowledge but for their patience in explaining concepts that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics and engineering. "Your species learns faster than any we ever encountered," Kithara observed, watching a team of human technicians successfully install a resonance weapon array in half the projected time. The Zephyrians required decades to master technologies that humans grasp in days. The key to humanity's rapid adaptation lay in their approach to problem solving. Where other species might spend months perfecting a single component, humans created functional prototypes quickly and improved them through iterative testing. This willingness to fail fast and learn from mistakes proved invaluable when working with alien technology. Dr. Vasquez had made her own contributions to the effort. Working with Kithara's knowledge of Zephyrian biotechnology, she developed medical treatments that could help human pilots interface directly with the new hybrid systems. The neural enhancement procedures allowed human reaction times to match the speeds required for operating advanced weaponry. But the most significant breakthrough came when Kithara revealed something that had been hidden even from their own people: the location of a Zephyrian dreadnought that had been placed in a hidden stasis field near the galactic rim. The ship was intact and contained technologies that even Kithara had only theoretical knowledge of. The Vanguard of Eternity was our most advanced vessel, Kithara explained to the assembled human military leaders. It was hidden away as a last resort, waiting for the day when someone capable of using it would be found. Admiral Kingston authorized an immediate salvage mission. Marcus led the expedition, accompanied by Kithara and a team of the most skilled engineers humanity could provide. What they found exceeded their wildest dreams. The Vanguard of Eternity was over 4 kilometers long and incorporated technologies that seemed to blur the line between science and magic. Its hull was grown rather than built, using living crystal matrices that could self-repair and adapt to different threats. Its weapon systems could modulate their output to match any target, and its shields could absorb energy attacks and convert them into power for the ship's systems. But the most incredible discovery was the ship's command center. Instead of traditional controls, it used a direct neural interface that could link multiple operators into a collective consciousness, while maintaining their individual personalities and decision-making abilities. "This is why my people failed," Kithara said sadly, as they explored the magnificent vessel. "We built ships like this but never learned to use them properly. We were too afraid of losing our individual identity to truly merge our consciousness with our technology." Marcus understood immediately. Humans had been experimenting with neural interfaces and collective decision-making for decades, especially in their exploration fleets where crew members often worked together for years in isolated conditions. The concept of temporarily linking minds for tactical purposes didn't frighten them the way it had the Zephyrians. When they brought the Vanguard of Eternity back to human space, it became the flagship of the United Human Fleet. Marcus was chosen as its primary pilot, with Kithara serving as his co-consciousness through the neural link. Together, they could operate the ship at levels of efficiency that amazed even Kithara. As the final preparations were completed, humanity deployed a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Traditional human ships retrofitted with Zephyrian technology fought alongside hybrid vessels that incorporated the best of both civilizations. At the center of it all, the Vanguard of Eternity stood ready to face an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The Hegemony fleet arrived exactly when Kithara had predicted, emerging from hyperspace in a formation that had conquered dozens of worlds. They expected to find a primitive human civilization with outdated weapons and minimal defenses. Instead, they found something that challenged every assumption they had about inferior species. The human fleet that met them was smaller in number but operated with a coordination and technological sophistication that should have been impossible for such a young civilization. "Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in Hegemony space, Gal," came the standard surrender demand. "Submit to annexation or be destroyed." Admiral Kingston's response was broadcast across all frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Kingston of the United Human Defense Council. You are trespassing in human space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Hegemony fleet commander's laughter echoed across the communication channels. "Pitiful humans, you do not understand what you face. We have conquered civilizations that had been spacefaring for millennia before your species learned to make fire." That's when Marcus and Kithara opened the channel from the Vanguard of Eternity. Kithara's voice, speaking in the ancient Zephyrian tongue, caused immediate chaos in the Hegemony ranks. "I am Kithara, hope-bearer of the Zephyrian people, and I stand with humanity against the darkness you represent. You thought my people were extinct, but our knowledge lives on. You thought humans were weak, but you do not understand their strength. Today you will learn why the galaxy fears what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object." The battle was about to begin, and for the first time in centuries, the Hegemony was about to discover what it meant to face an enemy that refused to surrender. The Battle of Saul's Edge became the defining moment in galactic history, marking the first time in over 500 years that the hegemony faced an enemy capable of matching their technological superiority. The hegemony fleet attacked in their traditional formation, expecting to overwhelm human defenses through sheer firepower and numerical advantage. Their massive dreadnoughts opened fire with planet-cracking weapons while their fighter squadrons swarmed forward to eliminate smaller human vessels. But humanity had learned from Cathara's knowledge of previous battles. Instead of meeting the hegemony head-on in traditional formation, the human fleet scattered into small, highly mobile groups that struck at weak points and vanished before the enemy could respond effectively. Marcus and Cathara, linked through the neural interface aboard the Vanguard of Eternity, coordinated the entire battle with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Their combined consciousness could process tactical information from hundreds of sources simultaneously, making split-second decisions that kept the human fleet one step ahead of their enemies. "Their weapons are more powerful than we anticipated," Admiral Kingston reported from her command ship. "Our retrofitted shields are holding, but barely. Adjust shield harmonics to frequency 77 alpha." Cathara's voice responded across the fleet communication network. "Their weapons operate on predictable resonance patterns." The adjustment worked. Suddenly, hegemony weapons that had been punching through human shields like paper found themselves harmlessly absorbed and redirected. The enemy's most devastating attacks became sources of power for the human vessels. The hegemony commander, Supreme Admiral Korthax of the Valorian Empire, could not believe what he was witnessing. His fleet, which had never faced serious resistance, was being systematically dismantled by creatures he had considered barely above animals. "Impossible!" Korthax roared across the battlefield communications. "These primitives cannot possess such technology." That's when Marcus decided to show the galaxy exactly what human ingenuity could accomplish. The Vanguard of Eternity, operating at levels that amazed even its original Zephyrian designers, began a maneuver that defied everything the hegemony knew about space combat. Instead of staying at range and trading fire, Marcus piloted the massive dreadnought directly into the heart of the enemy formation. The ship's living crystal hull adapted constantly to incoming fire, becoming more resistant with each hit. Its weapons, guided by Cathara's knowledge and Marcus's tactical instincts, struck with surgical precision at critical system nodes. "You want to see what humans are capable of?" Marcus broadcast to the enemy fleet. "We're the species that looked at the impossible and decided to do it anyway. We're the ones who saw a paralyzed alien child and refused to let them die. And we're the ones who are going to show you that there are worse things in this galaxy than the hegemony." The battle turned into a demonstration of everything that made humanity unique in the galaxy. Human pilots enhanced by Zephyrian biotechnology, but still fundamentally human in their approach, began performing maneuvers that other species would consider suicidal. They used their ships as weapons, ramming enemy vessels at precisely calculated angles to disable them without destroying themselves. They coordinated attacks through pure intuition and trust, operating without the rigid hierarchies that limited other military forces. Captain Rodriguez, commanding a squadron of retrofitted frigates, led her ships through the enemy formation like a pack of wolves hunting much larger prey. "Remember your training," she called to her pilots. "We're not trying to overpower them. We're trying to outthink them." The turning point came when Cathara identified the command frequency that coordinated the entire hegemony fleet. Using the Vanguard's advanced communication systems, they began broadcasting disruption signals that threw the enemy formation into chaos. "Their entire tactical doctrine depends on rigid coordination," Cathara explained to Marcus through their neural link. "Disrupt their command structure and they become vulnerable." Marcus smiled grimly as he watched massive hegemony dreadnoughts colliding with each other as their coordination systems failed. Looks like they never learned to improvise. But the enemy wasn't finished. Supreme Admiral Korthax, realizing that conventional tactics were failing, ordered his fleet to implement Protocol Omega, the complete destruction of everything in the system, including his own ships if necessary. "If we cannot conquer these humans, we will ensure that no one else can learn from their example," Korthax declared, beginning the charging sequence for planet-killer weapons that would sterilize every world in the system. That's when humanity showed the galaxy something even more impressive than their military capabilities: their willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others. Every human ship in the fleet immediately moved to intercept the planet-killer weapons, knowing that the radiation alone would be fatal to their crews. They didn't hesitate, didn't debate the decision, didn't wait for orders. They simply acted, because that's what humans did when innocents were threatened. "All ships, this is Admiral Kingston," came the final broadcast. "It has been an honor serving with you all. Make sure they remember that humans never surrender." But as the human fleet prepared for its final sacrifice, Kethara revealed one last secret from their ancient people's archives. The Vanguard of Eternity wasn't just a warship. It was a repository ship designed to preserve and protect life itself. "Marcus," Kethara said through their mental link, "trust me. I know what we must do." Together, human determination and ancient Zephyrian wisdom combined to create something the galaxy had never seen before. A weapon designed not to destroy, but to preserve. The Vanguard of Eternity became the center of a massive stasis field that encompassed the entire battlefield, freezing the planet-killer weapons milliseconds before they fired. In the sudden silence that followed, with thousands of ships frozen in time and space, Marcus's voice carried across every communication frequency in the system. "This is what happens when you threaten our home. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. And this is what happens when someone shows us that there are things in this universe worth fighting for." The Battle of Sol's Edge was over, but its consequences would reshape the entire galaxy. 5 years after the Battle of Sol's Edge, the galaxy was a fundamentally different place. The defeat of the Hegemony fleet had shattered their aura of invincibility, inspiring dozens of subjugated species to rise up against their oppressors. But more importantly, it had introduced a new way of thinking about cooperation between species. Marcus stood on the observation deck of New Harmony Station, a massive space habitat that served as the headquarters of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from hundreds of different species working together in ways that would have been unimaginable just years before. Beside him, Kethara moved with the fluid grace that had returned to them through the hybrid neural system Marcus had designed. The young Zephyrian was no longer paralyzed, but they were no longer quite the same species either. The integration of human and Zephyrian technology had created something new, something that transcended the limitations of both civilizations. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked, watching a group of human engineers working alongside former Hegemony scientists to design new exploration vessels. "Giving up your pure Zephyrian heritage to become something hybrid?" Kethara's carapace shifted to the warm golden color that Marcus had learned indicated contentment. "I was never pure Zephyrian to begin with," they replied. "I was broken, abandoned, left to die. You showed me that being broken doesn't mean being worthless, and that sometimes the most beautiful things come from combining pieces that were never meant to fit together." The transformation hadn't been easy. Many species initially viewed the human Zephyrian alliance with suspicion, seeing it as another attempt at domination, but Marcus and Kethara had learned to demonstrate rather than explain. They shared their technology freely, helped other species develop their own hybrid solutions, and never asked for anything in return except the opportunity to work together. Dr. Vasquez, now the head of interspecies medical research, had made incredible breakthroughs by studying the neural interface technology that connected Marcus and Kethara. Species that had been unable to communicate for millennia were now working together, sharing knowledge through temporary neural links that preserved individual identity, while enabling unprecedented cooperation. The old hegemony model was based on fear and submission. Dr. Vasquez explained to a gathering of galactic ambassadors, "What we're building is based on choice and mutual benefit. No one is forced to participate, but everyone who chooses to do so becomes stronger." The remnants of the hegemony still controlled significant portions of the galaxy, but their power was waning as more species chose freedom over security. Some hegemony worlds had even begun requesting membership in the Liberation Alliance, recognizing that cooperation was more beneficial than conquest. Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, commanded the Alliance's rapid response fleets that helped newly liberated worlds defend themselves against hegemony retaliation. Her ships were crewed by volunteers from dozens of species, all working together with the kind of seamless coordination that had once been unique to humanity. "The humans taught us something important," said Ambassador Thrixol of the Mantari Collective. Speaking at the Alliance's annual assembly, they showed us that strength isn't about dominating others. True strength comes from lifting others up and working together to achieve what none of us could accomplish alone. But perhaps the most significant change was happening on a smaller scale, in the countless individual relationships forming between species that had never interacted before. Marcus often walked through the station's common areas, where he might see a human child playing with young aliens whose species names he was still learning, or watch mixed crews from different worlds sharing meals and stories. Kethara had become something of a celebrity throughout the galaxy, not as a military hero but as a symbol of hope and redemption. They traveled extensively, speaking to groups about their experiences and helping other species develop their own cooperative technologies. The most important thing my people learned, and then forgot, was that the universe is infinite enough for everyone. Kethara would tell audiences, there is no need for competition when there are countless worlds to explore, countless problems to solve, and countless opportunities to learn from each other. The technology sharing had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. Human adaptability combined with alien knowledge had led to breakthroughs in faster-than-light travel, energy production, medical science, and environmental restoration. Worlds that had been devastated by hegemony, strip mining were being restored using hybrid terraforming, techniques that incorporated the best ideas from multiple civilizations. Marcus had been offered countless positions of power and authority within the Alliance, but he had turned them all down. He preferred to work directly with other species, solving practical problems and developing new technologies. His workshop on New Harmony Station had become a pilgrimage site for engineers and inventors from across the galaxy. I never wanted to be a leader, Marcus told Kethara as they worked together on a new project. A neural interface system that could temporarily connect the minds of an entire ship's crew, allowing for perfect coordination during complex operations. I just wanted to fix things that were broken. And that is exactly why you became a leader, Kethara replied, carefully adjusting a quantum resonance matrix. True leaders are not those who seek power, but those who seek to solve problems that others consider impossible. As the years passed, the partnership between Marcus and Kethara became the template for thousands of similar relationships throughout the galaxy. The neural linking technology they had pioneered allowed species with completely different biologies and thought processes to work together in ways that multiplied their capabilities exponentially. The galaxy was still vast and dangerous, still full of unknown threats and unsolved mysteries. But for the first time in recorded history, its inhabitants were facing those challenges together, united not by conquest or fear, but by the simple recognition that everyone was stronger when no one was left behind. Standing together on the observation deck, watching ships from 100 worlds work side by side among the stars, Marcus and Kethara knew that they had accomplished something more important than victory in battle. They had proven that the universe was big enough for everyone, and that the best way to honor the lost was to make sure no one else would ever have to face the darkness alone. The paralyzed alien child, who had been left to die on an ancient ship, had become the hope-bearer their name promised, and the human mechanic who couldn't walk past someone in need had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be heroic.